So let's go through how I made this kettlebell. So of course, we're going to start with reference, drop it in how you see fit. And I've had the size here on the sides, not just reference, but numbers, so I can get the scale correct, which is the same thing I did in the last couple of videos. So I'm converting from inches to centimeters because my Maya is set to centimeters for work. So I'm going to scale up the reference to that size. And this stage is very important. So from this point forward, I don't have to think about, is it to scale? Is it to scale? As you can see, the side of the kettlebell, I don't have the reference for that in just yet, but I will later in the video, so don't worry. And I've created my cage reference to scale, and I'm going to start modeling the kettlebell. So there are many ways to do this, and I decided to go with starting with a cylinder, right? And I'm gonna make it the appropriate size radius, which also matches up with the reference, which means I've scaled it correctly. So I'm just checking, seeing the amount of sides that I want for the cylinder, and then I'm going to start extruding the faces and rotating them as I go in large chunks, I guess I would say. And then after that, I will start to refine it. So I'm putting it in the end point and scaling it up to match the reference. Now, this is all well and dandy until you see a few moments from now why this was not the best choice. But this, as you can see, I'm able to hug the curve a lot more accurately, and I remain in control at all times. And I guess that's why I liked it that way at first. But when we go to the other view, you can see that, yeah, it's pretty bad because I scaled it in all directions. And it's a bit annoying to fix from that side. So I've decided to extract the profile curve from the mesh and use that to guide my next set. But as you can see, I deleted the faces, but it was linked. So keep that in mind if you're using Maya, right? Unlink it and delete history first. So what I've done here is created a flat face for me to extrude from, and I'm using the curve. So what this gives me is the flexibility to adjust the curve as I go. Now I'm just lining it up with the origin so that it works properly. So as you can see here, I'm using the curve to control the profile of the mesh. If you've used any 3D software before, this might look a lot more familiar. So I've just redone the curve again. I know it's a lot, but sometimes you need to tweak these things several times to really get what you want. And I think I'm happy with that. So I'm just deleting that one more time, rebuilding the curve a little, and then I'll finally extrude and keep this curve and carry it from here more or less. So just a few tweaks, because I really want to hug the shape a bit more accurately. So I'm using the soft select to do that, and just comparing it with the reference, and I think I'm happy with that. So now I'll continue on with the mesh. And the reason I'm flaring it out here is because later I know I'm going to transition the handle into the body so that it blends in a lot smoother. So with that, I'm going to mirror the handle, and now I have a handle that I'm pretty happy with. And I'm going to move on to the body. And the first attempt I made was with a platonic cube, otherwise known as a quad sphere. And I thought I was being smart because it would be easier with the topology and stuff. Turns out it was not. So I'm just gonna skip that part and let's use a regular sphere with the poles on each side. If you're using Blender, it would be a UV sphere, I believe it's called. So we're using the old nasty sphere as a reference, and we're putting in our regular sphere and scaling it up and getting it to match roughly the correct size. So what I'm doing here is counting the edges to make sure it will line up with each side of the handle, right? And this type of planning is actually really important, because you don't want to get there and then you try to bridge them, and it's not enough edges for it to connect. So this part is actually quite important, and you want to make sure I'm counting. I have my statistics view on in the top left corner, so that's what I'm looking at when I'm counting this, and I'm counting to see, oh, okay, well, it's 22 edges. Is that the amount on the handle, etc., etc.? And it took a little while, but now I know how much I need for each side of the sphere. And don't be afraid to put in the time, because it will save you time later, and it's gonna blend so much nicer. So here I'm going over the process again, as we've done this before, flattening and bringing it in to match the reference. As you can see, the faded sphere in the background is the old sphere I did, that the topology was painful to look at. So anyway, so we're getting to the bottom half, and we're going to circularize that and then bring it up and flatten it. Now, when you do something like this, the topology might not be perfect, but again, what you just need to do is step through it carefully. So there, I flattened it on the y-axis and circularized it. I'm trying to create a gradual transition from the bottommost faces upward, and it's good enough for now. So I'm going to move on to the handle, and because I did that work planning and counting, I'm now looking at that transition, knowing it can connect, but more importantly, trying to line it up to give it the best chance it has. So with that said, I've combined the objects and I've blended them. Now it might not look good now, but because there's so much room between the handle and the body, that means there's a lot of time for it to transition. And you can see me checking it from far. And that's actually a really good way to look at your stuff kind of in context, because you're not often going to be so zoomed in all the time. So here I'm editing the transition to give it a bit more of a blend. And it looks crazy, I know, but I'm just, sometimes you got to go through different steps to get it where you want. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling that up so that when I set the edge flow, it will kind of transition both directions. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I get it close. And the important thing here is this step. I use the sculpt brush to smooth it, to smooth the transition. And the reason I'm saying it like that is because that's gonna make it even slightly more natural. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of a beaten machined metal. So very slight imperfections in the smoothness is actually great. And we want that. So when I figured that out, I was very, very happy. Like, look at how it blends. That's just beautiful. So I'm going over the sides now and making sure those are good, so that I can then chop it in half and mirror it. And now we have a blended handle into the kettlebell body. So now it's time for us to focus on the bottom and getting that transition to look a bit better. So what I've done is deleted those faces, circularized them, and I'm actually going to create a pole here at the bottom. I keep using the word pole, but you know what I mean, right? Like when all the faces, all the vertices come to a point. And I'm just lining it up, making sure it aligns properly. And I'm going to delete half of it here and just make sure the geo is good before I mirror it over, because that's the side I mirrored before. And now I'm going over the corners and just seeing if I can get that topology to work for me, because we do have to transition this at some point when we bridge it all together. So for that, again, I'm going over it, testing, bridging, extruding. And this is a process, all right? It's not perfect. You will have to hand solve some things. And I merged them to make sure we would have the correct amount of edges to work with. And the bridge worked successfully. It's not perfect, so I'm gonna go over and try to fit some of the geo. As you can see here, I'm trying to make a solution, I guess, and I think I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna chop it in half once more and then merge it over so that all of those changes apply to both sides. So I chopped it both sides, and this is starting to look quite nice. So I just popped back there at the reference, and I noticed a point there, so I'm just gonna delete that. I think when I mirrored it, there were some stray points that got left over, so be careful with that. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty happy about this. So I'm just gonna go over and tighten some of the bevels, work on some of the transitions that we talked about before, and basically give the Kettle Bell a nice topology pass, and add divisions where it's necessary, of course. So you see me double clicking here and checking the edge flow. That will make the transition even smoother. And I've added a shiny material so that I can check how smooth and nicely the topology actually is, because that kind of reveals bumps and stuff a lot easier, and also makes bevels a lot clearer to see if they're sharper or smoother and flatter surfaces. So that's the reason for me adding that shiny material, and it's really helping me hone in on this transition from the ball to the flatness of the face. Kettlebells are so weird. Anyway, so I think I've tweaked that to death, I guess, and I'm happy with that. So yes, I am gonna chop it in half and mirror it once more. This time I've remembered to check for the stray vertices. So I think this is a great time to duplicate the mesh, chop it, then duplicate it, and then delete what I don't want from each side, which is the base from the handle and the handle from the base, because we're going to create that grip, right? So with that done, I can now extrude the edges at the top of the body to create that lip that's hugging the handle. I hope you can see what I mean here. And I'm just going to extrude it in a little so that it makes sure to intersect. As you know, we've mentioned this before in some of the other videos. So now it's a nice snug fit here, and I'm just scaling it so you can see the transition into the handle, if that makes sense, so that it just doesn't disappear. It really helps with the separation. So now we have this like handle done. I'm pretty happy with how the kettlebell is looking, if I'm being quite honest. So from here, I'm just gonna tweak the edge to give the lip. I wanted it to have a bit more body, to show the thickness, I guess. And once again, gonna duplicate it on both sides so that it makes a bit more sense not to work twice. I hope that makes sense. And from here on out, I'm just gonna clean up the scene a little. It's not much. It's just 2 objects, but it's still good to name them appropriately, because you know what's coming next. UVs. And because it's 2 objects and they're kind of machined in that sense, it's gonna be quite easy UVs here. I'm gonna split that underneath because that's where you're least likely to see the seam. And for this, I'm actually gonna split it on the side, because if you ever pay attention to some of these things, they're kind of done in halves and then melted together. It depends on the technique, but that's the one I am going with, so that when I get to texturing, I might just even only have to worry about that seam side, right? And it'll look natural. I don't know if you've ever seen like the edges of rubber or plastic. They have that nice little manufactured type seam. So here I was going to try to flatten the sides so that I could line up perfectly in relation to the UVs. But then I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it, make sure it's standing straight. and that way I can put the text on it, and the text, which will be in the middle, will not have any problems being warped or skewed. And that's good enough for me. So pretty happy with that. And I'm gonna actually export that. But I forgot to apply a different material. So let's just do that really quickly. And this is a really nice blue. But at the time, I decided I'm gonna go with a different color. Anyway, this is just me checking the material, because these properties will transfer into Unreal, even though we're gonna make textures and materials later, right? So let's go into Unreal and see how it looks in the scene. So we've imported it. I'm just going to apply a quick metal material, and let's load up the scene and let's go through it. So this footage is actually from our next video, but I didn't want you to have to wait on me finishing the yoga mat in order to show you this part in this video. So yeah, I'm just adjusting the metallic material here so that we can get an idea of how that looks, because it's a different metal to some of the other metals I've used before in the scene. That's the reason I'm creating a new one, because it's a bit darker. So after we finish that creation, we're gonna put it in the scene and figure out what we want. Here I'm just editing it to a more sensible color, because I don't know why I didn't stick with the blue in Maya. It beats me. I was gonna go with purple as well, but since the mats are gonna be purple, I wanted to go with something more striking and classic, I guess, because that's a pretty classic color for the mat. So here I'm looking at some compositions, like having it close to the outlet, kind of weird. And I'm, playing with some compositions, as I said. So I'm looking at interacting more than one prop here in one scene. Not sure if I liked it. I didn't hate it, so who knows, we might revisit that. So I decided I do want to explore the kettlebell on one of the benches. I think that feels more realistic or more likely to happen, and that's what I'm doing here. So I think I settled on this one. I really like this angle. So here I'm just going through the different lighting setups that I have. Yes, I'm going back to this view temporarily just to see. You don't want to rule out anything too quickly. All right, that's how you lose really good ideas. So this one isn't bad, but the background is a bit busy for my liking. I thought it was the focal length at the time, but that's not what it really was. It's the focus of the scene, the composition. And it's not bad again, but it's not as interesting as I really wanted the kettlebell shot to be. I might revisit it later, but for now, I think I'm going to stick with this one, because this one is a lot more striking and interesting. Granted, as I mentioned, the purpose of the gym environment series was to show off textures, but this shot is just too good to pass up, if I'm being honest. So yeah, this is the final shot, and here is the still image. Beautiful, just beautiful. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think this will be the final shot, and I'm happy and thankful for you to watch the video all the way to the end, or even skip to the end. I don't know. Either way, you are here, and I do appreciate it. So if this video has brought you any help, joy, distraction, anything, definitely give it a like. That would really help me out. And also leave a comment to tell me how you feel about this series so far, if you've watched more than one video. Is the format good? Is the time of the videos, is it too long? Is it too short? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Yeah, so just let me know. Like, I am looking at the comments and trying to figure out how I can be better at these kinds of videos. So Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one. Respect. Protect.